Previously on Popping Collars.
House of Cards is interesting to me on that level because The Sopranos and Breaking Bad, maybe this is just me, but with both of those shows for the first many seasons, I was rooting for the bad guy. And I think, that's the point. You love Tony Soprano, even though he's just so despicable, and you love Walter White, and you kind of find yourself rooting for them, and there's always a turning point where you realize they're a psychopath. And then you start rooting against them. On House of Cards with Frank Underwood, from the very first scene when he kills that dog,
Right.
he's the dad. Like, you are not. I'm rooting for everybody else except for him, and he's still the protagonist. And so I wonder what they'll do. Will they flip it, and something will happen in a couple seasons where we start loving him and rooting for him? That would be crazy. I know.
That'd be crazy.
Can't see it.
Hold on. Are we going to do overall themes from the Emmys, or you want to do it row by row?
Yeah, you're right. If we do it row by row, it's going to take
freaking forever.
Let's just do overall themes then. So we'll do an overall theme of comedy, an overall theme of drama, which is basically going to be a Breaking Bad discussion, and then bits and pieces of show discussion. Mm-hmm. So like in memoriam, hosting. Okay, so Emmys. The Emmys were on a Monday instead of a Sunday.
Yeah, thank you, football.
Nope.
I know, right?
VMA.
You think it was VMAs?
I totally think it was VMAs.
I think it was preseason football.
Man. No, but I mean, how many people love the back-to-back of the VMAs and the Emmys? That was you get an extra long fashion police out of that.
You're right, you do both. Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, yeah, that's like 2 weeks worth of fashion police, right?
Oh yes, and some very poor choices. So it's good. It's good.
I would imagine that there were more poor choices at VMAs than Emmys as far as fashion were concerned.
Well, it's the riskier of the two. You're supposed to wear something that's like cray-cray at the VMAs. That's your job.
But you're not supposed to at the Emmys unless you're on Girls.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Agreed.
That dress was bad. It was bad.
It was bad. And I love her.
Oh yeah. I think she knew it was bad.
I think Lena knew. I mean, there's a lot of tongue in cheek.
Well, Lena Dunham though, it was the hair. It was the hair.
Oh, the hair was bad too.
Yeah, I didn't get it. It was like white, right? It was like silver.
Yeah, she's got this platinum like bowl cut action happening.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the new movement in fashion.
So it's a Monday Awards show, which all of a sudden it sort of felt weird. Like it didn't feel like, usually you have all that red carpet time leading up to it because there's nothing else really going on a Sunday afternoon. So you have a lot of lead in. And here it kind of felt like, oh, the news is over. Oh my gosh, the Emmys are on.
Yeah.
It just felt like they were right on top of each other.
And let's
so I didn't see any red carpet stuff at all.
Well, and let's name the absence from the carpet. The Seacrest not involved on the carpet this year.
Why wasn't he welcome on the carpet?
I don't know. But it was no Seacrest on the carpet.
So who was heading up E's coverage?
It was Juliana Rancic and the guy who used to be the assistant on Jay Leno. What's his name? High-voiced assistant friend. Yeah. So it was the two of them. And it was fine. So I miss the Seacrest polish, though. Because he and Juliana kind of... And assistant guy, God, why can't I remember his name? He gets a little fanboy for me. Mm-hmm. And I like him and Kelly playing off each other upstairs because they'll be over the red carpet, and I like the two of them doing that. But I miss the Seacrest
And Ryan's got kind of equal footing with celebrities, even though he's a personality, because he's produced so many shows and he has his hand in so many. He's at their level.
NBC keeps doing this deal where they keep trying to shove Al Roker out there for these award shows, and it just doesn't work. No. I don't get it.
No, as long as it's not Billy Bush, I'm fine with it. God bless him. God bless him.
So I didn't see E's coverage, but are they still doing the objectifying cameras and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, well, you still do the up and down, the manny cam's still happening. I mean, you still kind of do what you do. Oh, it's Ross.
I think it's my bad.
There it is, Ross.
Uh-huh.
Okay, there.
It's the 360 camera that really bothers me, and I don't know why.
Well,
it's just
But Greg, we've now taken the 360 camera not just for the pre-show, but on the actual broadcast, putting our favorite Latina comic on a actual rotating pedestal, an actual 360.
Oh my gosh! Okay,
in the ceremony.
So Holly, having not seen the Emmys, I think you missed this.
I missed this because it was not on YouTube.
But this is something that we can definitely talk about because this was terrible, right? I mean, this was one of the most horrible things that's ever happened in the history of award shows. So the president of the Television Arts and Sciences Academy of Motion Pictures, whatever, comes out to do his boring speech about how they love television or whatever. And in order to distract you from this incredibly dumb thing that every award show does, they put Sofia Vergara up on a pedestal, a rotating pedestal beside him. And, the rotating pedestal did what it does.
Look at her.
Right. Oh, and with, innuendo
the idea is that we're supposed to be
that,
watching.
I mean, it was, right. And there's a part of me that's like, I'm a feminist, but there's pieces of me that are kind of post-feminist, and I'm like, oh, well, she's in on the joke. Great. And it's funny, and this part of the show is really boring, right up next to, like, here are the accountants, like, exciting. So, but the way it just kept going around and around, it was just so blatant.
How long did she go around?
She went around 2 full rotations,
it was slow.
And then the last rotation she was starting to go around again, and she actually started walking back. I mean, the point of the whole bit was to see her from behind,
which I understand. But again, I haven't seen it. But if she's in on it, and because she can be funny, and she's hamming it up, and she's like, "This is look at."
Right, but there's no way. There's no way that Matthew McConaughey is going to be on the rotating.
Oh no.
Platform, and I think that's the problem. It's like what? Yeah,
well,
it's funny. It's a funny joke, but what kind of cost?
Hold on. At the same time, when the woman who won for Best Comedy Directing for Modern Family, Gail, I believe, I can't remember.
Gail Mancuso.
Yes, Gail Mancuso. She did her own objectification of Matthew McConaughey because she couldn't look at the cast because she would cry, so she looked at McConaughey instead, to have him be her focus to keep her from being emotional. That was the gag. And it's similar, but it's more, what made the Vergara piece uncomfortable was that she was in on it, but that at the same time she was acting uncomfortable. Like she was kind of like, oh, what's happening? Like she didn't know what they were doing. Why am I going up here? What's going, like that was the gag, that she was unsure what was actually happening. And I think that almost made it extra, like, creepy. It made it very strange. So much so, like, I showed up for opening chapel. We had our first chapel for just faculty yesterday. And yesterday on Tuesday. And I showed up, and the other chaplain said, okay, so our plan during chapel is to have you, Betsy, on a rotating platform, like, during the, whatever. And it was, we were laughing about it, but it's like, it just kind of. It was a little.
I'm sure this is something that can come up when we're looking on doing a show at some point about how religion is horrible with body issues.
Terrible.
Christianity tends to be really bad with bodies. And so I know that there's a piece of me that's like thinking, oh, well, this makes me a little uncomfortable because, here's this woman that we're clearly supposed to be seeing as a sexual object during the middle of what's supposed to be an entertaining show. And that may sound a little prudish, I guess, in the context of the show, but still at the same time, like, I felt like this was a real step back for comedy. This felt like, and maybe this is a good segue into comedy in general, this felt like anytime I see bits of these Chuck Lorre CBS shows, so like 2.5 Men, Big Bang Theory, Mom, like, you know, I get them all. I know they're not all Chuck Lorre, but I get them all mixed up because they're all the same joke. They're all sex jokes, relationships with sex jokes. I mean, it's just all the same thing. And I don't understand why it's constantly rewarded.
Those are easy jokes. Those are really easy jokes.
Yeah, I mean, so for instance, you had Jim Parsons win Best Actor over, William H. Macy from Shameless, over Don Cheadle from House of Lies. I'm sure I'm forgetting some major nominee off the top of my head.
I'll pull it up.
You know, what does Jim Parsons have? And granted, fabulous person, I'm sure. What in the world is going on in the Big Bang Theory that puts it ahead of Shameless? Like, I don't get it at all.
A $1 million paycheck per episode.
Yeah,
is it ratings?
Yeah.
Is it
the ratings?
Show?
But I think also looking at just straight up women of color in comedy.
Yeah.
That those number of nominees are few and far between. That most of the women of color from Orange is the New Black put in as a comedy. You can debate that however you want to. But that they were all in the guest star category, which they won for. Crazy Eyes, awesome.
Yeah.
But that was really where most of the women of color from that show were housed in terms of their nominations. And so if you look at, like, supporting actress, all in comedy, all the women are Caucasian, and then in actress in the comedy series, most of them appear to also be Caucasian. So it's just
Modern Family, was she not Julia, but the Spinning Woman? Was she nominated?
No, Sofia Vergara.
She actually
Julie Bowen was. Julie Bowen was nominated.
Yeah. I do okay, I'm looking. And then interesting about Orange is the New Black, I mean, they take, because it's a network, or Netflix, they can take on, I mean, they do race. I mean, they fully address those issues.
Yeah, we talked about Orange is the New Black actually recently. You know what? There were two things that I thought about with Orange is the New Black. One is that these Netflix shows were nominated. Orange is the New Black, House of Cards, showing up in the nominations, and yet still not pulling the trigger on giving these things awards outside of, like, guest stars and stuff like that. The other piece was, my goodness, you get so used to the look of these women on the show of Orange is the New Black that to see them at an award show, like, in probably what their normal get-up is just amazing. It's like total transformation. There were a couple of women that I didn't even recognize from the show. So it's pretty amazing, like how, I don't know, how natural, how raw, I guess, the show is.
What are you saying, Greg? They clean up good? What are you saying? What exactly are you saying, friend? I'll put you on the spot.
I'm saying that I think that Orange is the New Black is a really brave show, and I think that there needs to be more brave shows on television.
You know, I was talking, sister-in-law and brother-in-law, they live right next door to this great casting agent, so we were talking once, and she did TV, talking about West Wing, of course, because that's such a great show, and she was bemoaning the fact that on cable, no, I don't know if it's cable, but network shows, they have a typecast, and she said it's really only the cable shows and now internet that are willing to go outside of that and hire quality over looks. Not to say that the people on network are only pretty and can't act, because we know to get into Hollywood you got to be able to maybe act, but still.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's
But they're not.
There's still not a lot of it. You know, it's funny. I was watching an interview with the girl that plays Pennsatucky on Orange is the New Black.
Oh yeah.
And you know, I mean,
Karen
obviously.
Manning, right?
Yeah, she was with Britney Spears in the Road Trip movie.
Oh, Crossroads.
Yeah.
Obviously, she's made up to look, you know, a little rough on the show. But she was talking about how, you know, showing up to the set, and she tells the director that day, like, I may need a little bit of makeup. I've got a little blemish here. I've got a little something here. And they're like, nope, forget it. Don't worry about it. We're gonna shoot you the way you are. You know, and it's like, she's like, it's so refreshing because Hollywood, you take for granted the fact that you're going to be sitting in makeup, getting ready for hours on end just to be presentable for camera. And here, it's not about that. It's about your acting ability. It's about what you bring to the character, what you bring to the show. And I think that's a pretty refreshing take. And obviously, I think that comes from Junji Kohan, who had a specific vision for that show. I wish it had gotten a little more notoriety at the awards.
So then why aren't shows like, because I think House of Cards, we can all agree, was fabulous. Breaking Bad, I haven't seen, but I know it's fantastic. But, you know, it took Friday Night Lights till their last season to win, and why aren't good quality shows, besides West Wing, why don't they win?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I've been wondering, you know, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about this at the end. You know, there's some always nominated but don't normally wins that are coming maybe to the end of their run. I mean, definitely Mad Men is going to be coming to the end of its run, and that's going to be next year. So if we're, you know, and I'm a big Breaking Bad fan, but if we're really about kind of, are we awarding the body of the work? Are we pulling, you know, I like to call it the Peter Jackson, you know, we'll nominate all your other Lord of the Rings movies for Oscars, but we're not going to really give it to you at the end, and it's really an award for the whole thing. So are we not going to give John Hamm not going to win an award, Christine Hendricks not going to win an award, you know, Elizabeth Moss isn't even getting freaking nominated. So we're not doing any of that until the end, so that will happen. But, you know, you also think about, like, Matt LeBlanc on Episodes. They get nominated all the time for acting and writing and directing, and then no award love ever kind of comes their way, even in kind of, you know, a one thing or another. I think the one that really breaks the mold in terms of new shows getting recognized, even though it's been on several seasons now, is Veep. And I think that show has said, you know, the writing is good enough and the acting is good enough that Julia Louis-Dreyfus can win back-to-back and do that, but for a newer show. But for many of the shows, as you say, like Big Bang and Modern and shows that are consistent and good, it's a little safe game. And we'll nominate you Netflix shows. We'll nominate, you know, your Showtime and your HBO. You know, I mean, Game of Thrones has been nominated how many times, and it hasn't won either. So I'm wondering how they're going to kind of reconcile their, you know, well, we've given you the nomination, that means we're validating the show you're doing.
Yeah, I think it was obvious this year that the Breaking Bad Awards, like that whole suite was a recognition for the quality of the show that had just wrapped up. And I think that, you know, part of me thinks that that's okay. You know, it's almost like a spread the wealth. This was something that showed up all the time when The Sopranos was just winning awards hand over fist, right? It's like, well, give somebody else a chance. We know The Sopranos is a great show. There are other great shows on television that can maybe use a little bit of a bump. And now I feel like Emmy's gotten into this thing where they do hold off awards until a show is starting to wrap up, with the exception of the comedy category. I think they'll give Modern Family awards until, you know, that show is in its 20th season.
And it should die.
Right. Well, and How I Met Your Mother ended, but it didn't. You know. So,
right. That's true.
So I think it will be interesting a year from now. We're talking.
Can I just say, by the way, Mad Men is a show that I have never really appreciated on an episode by episode basis. I think that I love the overall concept of the show, but there are some episodes I feel like it's very hit or miss on whether or not an episode is good. But the idea that there's a television show about how we got to the American society and life that we have now, like where it all kind of came from, this idea of marketing, this idea of corporations putting their face out there and making corporations like sympathetic characters in the American landscape. I think that it is a fabulous critique of modern day, and it's amazing. It's amazing to watch.
Well, I have to put out there the Chris Hardwick did an interview on Nerdist with Matthew Weiner recently, and it preaches. It's a great podcast. You should listen to it. I mean, just kind of talking about themes of loneliness, themes of how, advertising-wise, we are much closer to the 60s now than we have been for the past 30 years. You know, in that time of perfect family, perfect-looking people, very fit, multiculti, you know, all of those things as being portrayed as the perfect advertising family. Whereas, you know, things in the 60s and 70s and probably culminating with like, Where's the Beef? It was more this kind of real people. This is what real people look like and real people doing things. Yeah. And now we're back to, oh, look at everybody. They're so lovely. And it's gotten us used to now doing all of that with much more noise and much more presence from advertising. And I think that's something that so many people in our pews and in the world need to kind of be reflective about, the amount of noise and such that they're willing to put up with, you know, that you tune out pretty easily, or that you say, oh, I'm so happy this is here to distract me from everything else. But it's a great interview. It's a great podcast.
Oh, it's about story, I think. And that's the thing that I appreciate about 60s advertising. It wasn't about the product necessarily so much as it was about the story of the people that use the product. And that's where you see religious marketing, right? That's the idea that comes from the Latter-day Saints pitches that they put out a few years back, where it was like, you know, my name's Brian, I'm a surfer, and I'm a Mormon, you know, and it's genius idea, because by the end of the ad, I'm like, well, I like Brian. Maybe I'll go to an LDS temple and sort of check out what it's about, because I was sold on Brian's story, not necessarily the theological ideas that were being presented by the LDS Church, right?
So a friend of mine, she's Mennonite, so we're going, hop in traditions here. Her church in Denver did sermon series, big church, like 1,000 people. Arts, that was their sermon series this summer. And they asked her, she's a social worker, but she's the one who introduced me to pop culture. And so she had to preach on TV. And so she's like, how does this connect to faith? And I was thinking, because you said story, Greg, and all the TV shows that we've talked about that we love. I was thinking particularly, you said Mad Men, how it's not an episode of The Wire, but there's an arching story that connects to our lives in a way like Bible stories do, and characters that we can relate to, even though I don't have a twisted identity like John Hamm.
Right.
I can not relate to anything in his life, but somehow empathize with him very much.
Yeah, I think that's why episodic television is so much easier. I feel like that's why it gets the ratings that it does. That's why NCIS is a huge hit.
Yeah, I think so too.
Right? It's because I can just check in once a week. I don't watch it. I'm not checking it. Let me just put this out there.
Judgy.
I don't watch NCIS.
Judgy.
Confession time.
But for someone that would potentially watch NCIS, it's an hour of your life. The story starts, the story ends. You know what happens. You don't have to commit yourself to some overarching story that's going to take you down some path of nuanced characters who change their minds and who evolve over time and stuff like that. That takes a lot of work, and I think that that's the reason why I like that Breaking Bad gets recognized. I can't tell you how many conversations I had with people at my work this week who saw the Emmys and said, oh, I've never seen that show. Maybe I should watch it. I'm like, well, that's great. That's what an award show I think should be. It should be leading you to new discoveries of art and television that are out there, and not necessarily telling you the same story over and over again. That Modern Family is great and Jim Parsons is a funny actor. You know,
no, I think it's true.
We get it. We get it.
Well, there was one thing that we had talked about.
So every award show has the in memoriam piece, right? Every award show has the time in the middle where we take it down a notch and we recognize
VMAs didn't. But last year's Emmys,
VMAs will never.
Last year's
although
Emmys
they'll probably
they did the in memoriam in the chunk, but remember they'd spread out like four particular people. Like Gene Stapleton, right, and Rob Reiner came on as the actor who played her son on All in the Family. And so there were these moments of kind of heavy emotion.
Yeah.
I'm a crier, I'm crying. And so it made me then feel like I was crying throughout the Emmys. I
feel like this is the key piece to every major award show. Not that the VMA, well, yeah, I'm calling the VMAs out. They're minor. They're a minor award show.
Holly looks at it.
Yeah, I wasn't watching them.
But every major award show, I think that something that people can appreciate, and I'll put this out to you guys to think about also. It's a ritual, right? It starts with a monologue, maybe a singing and dancing number. You can pretty much anticipate when the awards are coming. But it's that in memoriam piece. That's the one piece that everybody wants you to get right, because that's the one piece that I feel like is really internalized by the audiences that are watching the show. It's like when you go to a church service and whatever your favorite part of the service is, you really want them to get that piece right, because that's what's going to influence your experience of the worship service going forward.
I think it's the prayers of the people. It's the prayers of the people of the ceremony. I think it's this moment where we're holding everybody in prayer, whether you're a producer who nobody knew what you look like. You know, we name the shows that you did, the movies that you've done, you know, whatever the genre of the award show is. And it holds everybody in a similar place. And I think the pullout on Robin Williams was needed and necessary, being the first real event and TV really being his launching pad. You know, I think I felt like that part was well done, and so that he was the pullout at the end. But I see it as a prayers of the people piece.
And I'm going to be honest, I always leave the room when those come on because I'm like, not very funny. But I think of them as like funerals, where you have to do funerals compared to a wedding. A wedding can be fun, and you can have a moment where you had a funeral recently where the music director and I totally butchered the communion part. Like, it was awful. And we all just laughed it through. We thought it was really funny. But the rest of the service was right on perfect. But memorials and funerals, you can't really screw up too much. They've got to be, because they carry a lot of weight. So that part of the service show seems like it.
Feel like they know how they should go, because they've sort of seen enough of them that they know what feels right for a funeral or a marriage.
But what I didn't realize I've been doing since we kind of did in our own wedding is that I guess I've been adding a little in memoriam of my own in the weddings that I do, that I offer to the couple in the prayers for the couple part, that can either be said by me as the liturgical leader or by other people as the prayers. I've said, is there somebody who's passed away? Grandma, grandpa, someone you love, brother, uncle, who you would want named as someone who is here in spirit, although not physically present, here at this service. And having a moment in the wedding service to name those people as being present. And I didn't even think about it in that way, of being an in memoriam moment, at a moment of celebration, but remembering the people who can't be there to celebrate with you physically. Yeah.
Do you have Jewel playing guitar?
No, well, poor Sarah Bareilles, who didn't even get named as the singer. I'm sitting there, like, I was tweeting it. I'm like, who is this? Should I know who this is? No one's telling me who she is. And then Seth Meyers had to come out and say, and by the way, thank you so much, Sarah Bareilles, singing that song. Whoops.
You know you're something if you're a by the way. Gwen Stefani butchering Colbert Report.
What was she doing there?
But what was interesting, and we had touched on Robin Williams the last time we spoke on the podcast, that when Billy Crystal, who did a really lovely job talking about his dear friend, that what's grown out of Williams's loss is this talk about the heavens, is this kind of celestial piece, and his daughter kind of started that with the idea that he's now a star watching down on us. And so I found it interesting that Crystal mirrored that language, because at the end, this was just a little piece of it. He said, for almost 40 years, he was the brightest star in the comedy galaxy. But while some of the brightest of our celestial bodies are actually extinct now, their energy long since cooled, but miraculously, because they float in the heavens so far away from us now, their beautiful light will continue to shine on us forever. The glow will be so bright, it'll warm your heart, it'll make your eyes glisten, and you'll think to yourselves, Robin Williams, what a concept. And I thought that it was interesting that with his passing, and him being a person, you know, so strongly held by Episcopalians as a person of faith, as one of their own, you know, and that there's just a lot of heavenly body conversation going on about him. And that it's almost going back to language that I think in the church, being people who work in the church, that I tried to get away from, God's up here, we're down here. It's more, God's among us, between us, in us, around us. That spatial separation isn't as real, but when we lose people, that there's something about that eternity of the sky that is a metaphor we love.
That the younger boy wants a romance. She wants to eat noodles, watch TV. What do you want? Commercial TV! Woo! Woo! She wants to drink some beers, so she can puke noodles on the TV.
Okay, so we don't do intros or outros or anything. We're going to do a mid-tro.
Ooh, mid-tro this time. Exciting.
So this is the part where we get to kind of introduce ourselves in preparation. New segment of our show, which we're going to call Prophecies, where we're going to predict future Emmy winners coming up, and actors, actresses, or shows. So let's introduce ourselves. Tell us who you are, where you are, and what church you're working in. And we'll start with our new arrival. We are branching out. We're moving out of the Episcopal world and into the Lutheran world. Holly McHale Larson. Holly, tell us who you are, where you're working, what you're up to.
Holly McHale Larson. I work at a Lutheran church, Our Saviors, in Lafayette, California, Bay Area. There you go. And I'm an associate, so I do. Oh, my senior pastor's not listening. So I do everything. There you go.
Betsy, what's up?
Oh, Betsy Gonzalez. I am a priest and chaplain at an Episcopal boarding school in Northern Virginia. All high school, all boarding, all the time.
I am Greg Knight, Director of Children and Youth Ministries at Bethesda by the Sea Episcopal Church in Palm Beach, Florida, where it is really, really hot right now.
You're glistening a little bit, even just by computer light.
I may look like, I may look a little raw right now myself on the camera. It's a good thing this is a podcast and I don't show up. So that's great. So so we've seen the Emmy Awards 2014. In anticipation of Emmy 2015, is there a show that you love that you want to go to bat for that you think is deserving of an Emmy nomination and win? And we're going to start with you, Beth.
Okay. I'm going back to what I said before. Final season of Mad Men, right? That's going to be it. I think, Matthew Weiner's been up on the stage a few times, that kind of thing. But I'm wondering whether...
I mean, like their first year?
Yes. But what I'm wondering, but now we're on like season 6, 7, 6.5. Oh, however
I don't understand
he does it. It's very confusing. But I'm wondering whether we're finally going to see something for John Hamm. I mean, that's really... he might have won that first year. I can't even remember now. But it's been a long time that I'm calling him Beardy McBearderson because the beard was a little bit out of control on Monday. But that Beardy, I think, come on. I think he should... This is a great character. I think that understated acting doesn't get a lot of love. And to be nominated for all the things that you're not always saying in a character. And, I just really feel it. I feel it, I'd love to see that happen.
It's one of the great characters on television. You would hate for Emmy cycles to go by without that character, at least, even if it's not John Hamm, but at least Don Draper being right.
Exactly.
Don Draper's sorry to get back to The Wire, but who doesn't love The Wire? McNulty. We watched that. Sorry, Betsy. We'd watch The Wire, and I would just have I hate him. I love him. And that's Don Draper too. Don, stop chasing skirts. Pay attention to your kids.
Right.
Yeah, that's not him.
Right. So I just looked it up. Hamm has been nominated for an Emmy since 2008 and never won. He won the Globe in 2008, and that's really the only of those two big award shows for TV. He is not. He's won a Globe, but not an Emmy.
So my prophecy, this is more of a hope than it is a call to arms that this is actually going to happen. Kevin Spacey, House of Cards. I honestly, this, the job he is doing on House of Cards, it is mesmerizing to me. I cannot take my eyes off of him when he is on the screen. I'm totally curious about what he's going to do next. Totally amazed by the choices that he makes as an actor with this character all the time, because it looks like the whole point of what he's doing as an actor is to try to push you away as an audience member by doing something just rotten, by giving you a look that just strikes you right to your heart, and yet the more he tries to push you away, the more compelling it is, the more you want to follow it and his story and where it's going. I am a staunch advocate, not really necessarily for the show. I think the show is great. I think, it is what it is. His performance, though, my goodness, I think he's got to be recognized and got to be awarded at some point.
Well, and you brought him up in the Devil episode last week.
I did. In the Devil episode, I said, this is the devil's story that we're watching. This is the story of the devil. And the whole idea of the show is, at some point, can you find yourself pulling for the devil, in the story? And I think if any actor can get you to do it, he's the one that can.
He didn't get a Globe, did he?
No. The show's been nominated but never awarded. I don't think any Netflix shows have been awarded.
Okay.
Since they've entered the stage. Holly, what's your prophecy for next year's Emmys?
Not Pretty Little Liars, but let me tell you, that is a pretty fine show too.
That was Liz's confession for her guilty pleasure.
No, my guilty pleasure is Revenge. I am in love with the guy who plays Nolan. Okay, anyways, but I don't think that's going to win anything, and it shouldn't. It really shouldn't.
Maybe the MTV Movie TV Awards will win.
Maybe. So I don't think this is the best comedy out there, but it's slightly mainstream, and it's on its last season. And I think it's a great collaboration. Last season wasn't as funny. But Parks and Rec, there are some episodes to that, like when they did the UN thing, I was laughing. Or when she did the whole quilt and she put Joe Biden in it, I'm dying laughing. Oh, and Chris Pratt. I feel like that.
Yeah, it's a great show.
And it's not too smart I feel like almost anyone can watch that show, but. Yeah.
It's NBC comedies.
I'm terrible.
NBC comedies not getting the love that they deserve, even though their audience numbers are wherever they are. Parks and Rec, you're exact. I agree.
It's a great show. And of course, okay, just because I can say this, I'm not the hugest Community fan, but last season was pretty good. I thought last season was really good. So, there you go. I don't think it's going to win anything, but I do think the guy who plays Abed should get something. I think he's really good.
I do happen to be a big Community fan, and so I support the show.
Like the volcano one, or Hot Lava, when they were playing Hot Lava for they just...
Fort, the Pillow Fort.
The Mad Max references. I agree with you. I think that there's some dry wit and nuance and all those kinds of things that I think that both the show, like Community, like Parks and Rec, really have. It's
30 Rock finally got some love.
I think there's reasons why shows like that end up winning more in the Screen Actors Guild type things, because people are really viewing it as the ensemble. That's everybody all together. And I do think the Emmys and their structure and the way they force you into the categories of lead and guest and supporting and that kind of thing, there's a piece of the actual parsing of the work and the brilliance of shows gets splintered, and in a way that what I like about things like the Writers Guild, Producers Guild, Screen Actors Guild, you're really awarding the ensemble, the group effort in whatever area. And so I think that there are shows that will intrinsically not get on the board because it is an everybody thing and not necessarily a one shining star moment.
Like Orange is the New Black, I don't think the gal who plays Piper, she's the first season definitely we're going to continue with her hand and Betsy. Like the main gal, but the second season, which is phenomenal, it's a whole cast.
It's everybody.
Yeah, she's your entrance to the show, and now that you've got your footing, she's
your white girl that gets you in, and you're
right. And what you hope never happens is that the drive for awards and press then steers writers to saying, well, we need more of this person because they're the quote unquote lead in the show, and it then takes away from everybody else. I'm glad a show like Orange is the New Black hasn't fallen into that trap of kind of saying, well, we've got to have more Taylor Schilling because she's our lead gal, as opposed to all these wonderful characters they developed. I just saw a press thing came out. Lori Petty's going to come back for season 3, which I think is going to be great. More the merrier.
Okay. Well,
what's up next?
It's actually time to start wrapping up the show.
Look at this. Holly's on the West Coast, everybody. So it's like 2:30 in the afternoon, and so Holly's like, "What are we going to talk about next?"
I can't do now. I'm about to fall asleep on my keyboard.
I know. Betsy's here like,
I'm a little bit tired.
Lunches to make. It's okay.
It's time for our segment called Go in Pieces, where we talk about something that's going on in our ministries and our lives, something that's happening around now. I can lead off, by the way. It's about to launch. Everything is about to launch at our church, education programs with our youth. And I am going to be taking a group of youth to Universal Studios this Saturday for roller coasters and Harry Potter and Jurassic Park and the Hulk and all that stuff. I'm super excited, bummed to leave my family, but I think it'll be fun.
Awesome.
It's
always great to kick off the year with something.
Let's see what's going on with us. We're still on the last podcast. We were almost kicking off the school year. We're still almost kicking off the school year. It takes a while to get us all there. But I will say, pop culturally, my family and I, we participated in the Ice Bucket Challenge, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, which, a couple of weeks ago. And, I'm a big, I want to participate with everybody kind of person on whatever it is. I'm a Mindy Kaling, is somebody doing something somewhere without me type, the fear of being left behind. But what I really loved about it is the conversation about what ALS is that we had around it, and having an uncle who died of ALS. It was wonderful to be able to just kind of throw that back out to the universe and kind of recognizing people who have their criticisms of whatever it is, but really being excited that we're, what I checked yesterday, like $88 million, to be able to have that money to do something phenomenal with research and trying to kind of let it become what it is, and that each country who's now doing it is doing it in their own way. And it makes me wonder kind of what will be, and I'm just hoping nobody does like the cinnamon challenge for blah, blah, blah. Like, let's not do that. But I think there's something universal about this that allows everybody to be invited and to do it. And it makes me think what would happen if any faith tradition could get really behind that in some kind of way, or find some kind of movement like this that says, we're all in this together, and we're going to do something about it. So
I do my ice bucket pledge, and now I invite you to pledge.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. So I'm trying to be down with the naysayery. I get it. Matt Damon can douse himself with toilet water because he's with Water.org, and I get it. And I love that people are still able to participate while giving nods to the pieces of it that are more difficult in terms of other parts of the world. But anyway, Holly, what are you up to?
I'm just finishing up the summer of the guy that I work with was on a 4-month sabbatical. So I'm in the transition of giving back the reins and also here's all the work I haven't done, and also kind of sorting out, I'm not in charge anymore, and the plus and the minus of it's fascinating. But
it is.
Yeah.
That is.
I've covered a couple sabbaticals already, but this was a third of the year. Summertime, so it was slow, but just for my own identity. And on an identity, my leadership style is very different than his. And going, this works for me, and it works in the community. And so anyways, I saw myself in a different light, which is making me kind of question what's next. But there we go. Maybe into pop culture.
Well, it sounds like it was an experience that you needed to have.
Yeah, it was good.
It's really good.
It was a good experience.
Well, that was popping collars this time. Emmy wrap up edition.
Keep those collars popped, even if Fashion Police doesn't like it.
Keep that Colbert report. Collar pop.
Gwen Stefani was weighed down by many mini-sized Swarovski crystals on her Versace outfit. Just back off.
Woo!